can't steal from everybody. I'm going to tell you a story that is arguably the best movie that has ever came out of Haiti. This story, if you know, is a true story. Aye, bobo. I am Mabo Rose, aka Priestess Rose or Priestess RLS. I am a Haitian voodoo high priestess, a Mabo Asogwe. In this series, Tales from Home, I bring you stories, experiences, tales, movies from the mysterious land Haiti. Tales from Home cannot be possible without your support. And if you do like this kind of content, these kinds of stories, I encourage you to please like, subscribe, comment, and follow me on all my social media. And don't forget to hit that little bell so you get notifications for every time I post a new video. Buckle up. Let's dive into the world of Sonson. Our story today starts with a merchant walking down the road, verbally advertising that he buys iron pans and pots. And as the merchant walks down the road, a young lady comes out with her bags packed, waiting on a car to pick her up. Now, this is where we meet our first main character, Compedilin. Compedilin comes out, he grabs a chair and sits down. Shortly after, a man comes to greet him and he grabs a chair for him to sit down. This is where we meet our second main character and the man whom the movie is named after, Sonson. Compedilin and Sonson are having a conversation. Sonson says to him, I see you have handled business very well. They chat for a little while. Not soon after, Compedilin receives a visitor. The visitor climbs out of the car and heads over to Compedilin and Sonson, who are sitting down, arms open, excited to see him, as he expresses that it's been a long time since I've seen you. Sonson politely excuses himself, expressing that he has noticed that Compedilin has a visitor, Sauveur. Once Sonson has left, Compedilin and Sauveur sparks conversation. Now we have our storyteller in the audience, Sauveur and us. Compedilin expresses to Sauveur, did you see that man that was just there with me? Let me tell you, nobody knows him like I know him. Bra, who he practically raised, does not know him. His wife does not know him. Jefferson, who is Bra's son and Compedilin's grandson, does not know him. You do not know him. Emphasizing that nobody knows Sonson like he knows him. He proceeds to tell Sauveur why Jefferson, his grandson, and Bra's wife recently just left town. And the story goes like this. Jefferson farted in the presence of Sonson, which in Haitian culture is extremely disrespectful. So naturally, Sonson, being an elder, looks over and questions, oh, you farted in my presence and didn't say excuse me. And to which Jefferson replied, fuck you, cursing Sonson out. At that moment, that Sonson reaches over for Jefferson in anger. Jefferson then retaliates by grabbing a massive rock and bashing Sonson over the head. He explains to Sauveur that is why you saw him sitting here wearing that bloody band-aid around his head. Sauveur is shocked by the actions of Jefferson being a child, and Compedilin explains to Sauveur that he handled business. Jefferson's mother, the woman in the beginning, comes out in a rage. She is highly upset about the whole altercation. Rather than punish her child or teach him some manners or excuse him, she starts to curse Sonson out as well, even though he is the one that was bashed over the head with a rock. So when Compedilin comes out to see this whole mess and the way that Jefferson's mother is reacting, he knew he had to act fast and to correct this wrong. And so they packed their bags and they left. This is where our true story begins. As Compedilin asks Sauveur, are you in a rush? To which he replied, No, I was waiting for Bras, so I will hang out with you until he gets back. Our story continues with Sauver and Compedile at the beach. Compedile explains to Sauver that long time ago, when he was about 28 or 29 years old, they used to live in another village. In this village, everybody acted as if they were family. It was a small village, so everybody knew each other. This is where he met Sonson. At this time, he was newly a single father and had to raise his son on his own. He starts this whole story by telling Sauver about the man who stole the plantains. An angry crowd pushing and shoving a man carrying a batch of plantains. The angry crowd approaches the police station of the village. The police officers take the man away from the crowd and assure them that he will be dealt with. Justice will be served, and that the crowd may leave and allow for them to serve justice to the man who stole the plantains. Back in the day in Haiti, it was common that military or police were allowed to beat those who have committed crimes. So instead of just arresting them, they would be punished for their crimes with physical force. Now we see a younger Compedile waking up to perform his morning rituals. As he's washing his face and brushing his teeth, a song plays in the background. This song is very significant. The song is a warning. It warns those who have cause for a person to be angry, who have tested a person, made them angry, and done things to them that is not justified. The spirits may punish this person for what they have done. When you get somebody angry and they decide to take action on you, you may just regret it. During his morning ritual, Compedile noticed that there is a man in the bushes next to a goat that Sonson had him watching for him. It is common that neighbors will allow those with more land to watch their animals. If you have a goat and there's a person who is used to watching goats or sheep, a shepherd, you would let your friend or your neighbor or your family member watch your goat for you until it grows up and has babies, and then you could then share. Sonson is a very poor man, but what he does have is that one goat by the name of Tibet. Tibet meaning little bear. Compedile noticed this man immediately trying to get the attention of the goat to come with him. He quickly removes the goat from the location that it's at so the man may no longer antagonize or harass the goat. Every night, Sonson will bring some kind of food for the goat to eat and to check on the progress. Since they are friends, they hang out, they eat together, and they talk. Compedile mentioned to Sonson, the man who was trying to gain the attention of the goat, a very obvious attempt to steal the goat. However, Compedile reassures Sonson that he moved the goat and that everything is fine. The next morning, Compedile is doing his morning rituals yet again. His son, Bras, rushes over to him in a panic, stating that the goat has escaped, to which Compedile goes over to see that the rope has indeed been cut and somebody has taken the goat. Not long after, we see one of the neighbors who is a merchant heading to the market to sell her goods. She tells Compedile that she is early this morning and if he needed anything to buy. He answers no. What he does mention to her is that the goat that Sonson had him watch had just escaped. He is a bit distressed about it. The merchant in shock goes, "Are you talking about Tibet?" Compedile replies yes. She then informed them on her way here, she just saw Borsevilom heading towards the market. Then again, we see the same angry crowd pushing and shoving and yelling slurs at a man, cursing him out for stealing a goat. The man defend himself by saying the goat was just walking by. The goat was just there and you guys are accusing me of stealing the goat. When they get to the station, the officers take the man away from the crowd for his own protection. He then began to verbally fight back and attack the crowd, throwing slurs at them, cursing them out just the same. They take him into the room where they punish the criminals. While from the outside of the building, it appears that the man is being punished for his crime with a physical beating. The crowds can hear the yells and the screams and the begging for forgiveness coming from the man from inside the station. However, we see what is truly going on when Bras, a curious child, goes around and peeks through a window. So instead of actually beating and punishing the men, the police officers are actually hidden a pillow pressed against a mat to give off the illusion and sound of them actually beating up the men. Meanwhile, the man is fixed screaming and yelling and begging for forgiveness while eating, laughing, and enjoying himself with the officers. Naturally, Bras informs his father of what he just saw. Compère Dylan looks over to the crowd and says, "We have lost a goat, yes, but this is not the end of the situation," and encourage everybody to go back home. Now we see Compère Dylan and Bras are having a conversation while laying under a tree. Bras walks over to his father and he says to them, "Father, what are we going to do now?" His father assured him that he is just a child and did not need to worry about those things. However, his father tells him a story. He tells him a story about a father and a son, just like them, who used to live. The father says to the son, "My son, even when I am gone, just know if you are ever in trouble, you may call on me and I will always come." One day, the son found himself suffering and in so much trouble he did not know what to do. He called out to the father and he said, "Father, you are now gone. I am still here. You said to me if I was ever in trouble for me to call on you, but you are not here to help me." In that moment, that breaking point, that he heard a voice say to him, "My son, I have always been here with you. Those footsteps that you see, they're not your footsteps. These are my footsteps. I carry you on my shoulders. I am always with you." Bras is young, he doesn't quite understand, but his father is teaching him lessons and giving them powerful messages in our Haitian culture. And it is because of that kind of hope, people in their situation who don't have much, who are poor, are able to survive. That night, Sonson comes to supper like he always does, bringing something for Tibet to eat. Compère Dylan sits Sonson down as he has much to tell him. This is where we get to really understand more about Sonson's character. Sonson is without a doubt a man of discipline, an honorable man, a man who knows wrong from right and has very, very little tolerance for vagabonds and those who bend the law. Compère Dylan has to deliver the very unfortunate news about Tibet. He tells Sonson that Tibet was taken, unfortunately, by the brother of the chief of police of their village. Sonson is obviously a strong man, but after hearing that Tibet has been taken or being held somewhere, he begins to sob and cry. Compère Dylan assured him that Tibet is fine and is being held, but he does not believe it. He says to Compère Dylan, "I'm telling you, Tibet is dead." Compère Dylan says to Sonson, "Don't worry, we'll go down to the police station and we'll speak our piece. I have freedom of speech. When it comes time for me to talk, I'll be able to talk because I was there to witness everything." The next morning, they both walked over to the police station. Upon arrival, they see two men sitting playing dominoes. They ask about the chief to have a parlay. Everybody at the station is completely unbothered and not in any hurry to help them. Inside of the police station, we see the chief of police with another man zipping up his pants. And we can hear the other men on the other side saying that I am not engaging in any sexual activities with you in a very joking manner. When the two men sit to have a conversation with the chief of police, who we see previously speaking to the angry crowd in a respectful way, of which he ensured them that they are the law, they are the police, and their duty is to protect and serve the citizens of this town. Now he speaks to the men in a very aggressive and rude manner. When Compère Dylan tries to interrupt and speak his piece as he believes he has freedom of speech, he is quickly interrupted by the chief of police, who asks the guy standing next to him who said that this man had the right to talk. The men then reply, "Nobody gave him the right to talk. The chief of police told him to basically get him," and the men chased Compère Dylan out of the station. Now Sonson, the other police officer, and the chief are still in the room. The chief explains to Sonson, "I know that you may not have a lot of money, but I have to charge you 300 goods, which is the law here. You must pay this money in order to get your goat back, as it is your fault for allowing this goat to run free and eat people's crops. Therefore, you must find a way to pay this money. Sonson naturally is a little bit confused and shocked by this. So the chief begins to gaslight him by saying, this is the law. Do you want to ask the higher up? You want to question their decision? If so, you must not have any respect for the law. And Sonson replies, oh, me? No, never. I will do everything that I possibly can to come up with the money. He is confident once he has paid the money, he will have his beloved goat back. Sonson is a poor man. He is left with no choice but to go and borrow money from a banker. He is welcomed into the office by an assistant. He sits down to talk with the banker, who seems to know Sonson very well and has lended him money in the past, in which Sonson still needs to repay. Sonson explains the situation to him, in which he replies, that was your goat that was stolen? Did you know that the person who stole the goat is the brother of the chief of police? The banker is obviously very sorry for Sonson. He tells Sonson, your land is really small, but I know you need the money to do what you have to do. So he lets Sonson borrow the money and even gives him $100 more extra, has him sign, and the assistant also sign, the assistant who goes by the name Izadie. It is very obvious that the bank teller knows that Sonson is indeed being played. The money that they're demanding for Sonson to pay to have his goat returned to him is a lot of money. Sonson is a poor man, and it is still a lot of money for anybody in Haiti at this time. The banker not only gives Sonson the money, but also gives him some word of encouragement and tells him to handle his business. Now we see Borsevilom, the man who stole the goat, and the other officers that worked at the police station sitting playing dominoes and enjoying their stuff. They're drinking, they're waiting for food to be made. There's two women in the kitchen who are preparing the food while they drink and joke. Borsevilom is telling inappropriate jokes. The chief of police, who is Borsevilom's brother, is sitting right beside him. And surprisingly, Izadie, the banker's assistant, is also there with them. Borsevilom expresses that him and Izadie go way back and they joke around all the time and tell inappropriate jokes. Meanwhile, we get a glimpse of what the women in the kitchen are cooking. They are frying plantains. While Sonson is a very poor man, he cannot even count money. He doesn't know how to read. There is, however, one thing that Sonson is unmatched at, and that is voodoo. Sonson is a very powerful Ougan who commands very powerful spirits and have a lot of powerful law on his side. Sonson has taken matters into his own hands. He has brought the whole thing to his spirits. While the men, Borsevilom, the commander, are back at the party having fun, drinking and eating, Sonson is at work all through the night. A woman appears from the dark entrance and is surprised to see that Izadie is here drinking, partying with these guys, while his wife, Marinette, is very angry and looking for him. She advised him to hurry up and go find her. When Izadie tries to leave, Borsevilom makes it very clear that Izadie is a grown man and does not have to take orders from Marinette. However, Izadie disagrees and says he must leave, he has to go, because Marinette is not a woman to be played with. Borsevilom says to Izadie, you can go because there is a little goat that is about to be cooked and served, and I don't think there's gonna be enough for everybody. And this is when we understand exactly what has happened to Tibet. Meanwhile, Sonson is still hard at work in the middle of the woods performing his rituals. We can hear strange noises. At one point, lightning strikes and hits Sonson on his forehead. The deed is done. The next morning, we see a few of the men laid out, passed out, drunk, with their bellies full, and it is the women who chase them out of the compound in order for them to complete their morning chore. Izadie is seen playing dominoes with another man when his wife approaches him, yelling and screaming for him, while he and the men ignore her. As she continues to yell, the man says to Izadie, why don't you go over there and struck her? If I was you, I would go over there and struck her. And in which Marinette responds with hurling rocks and stones at the two men. Marinette is upset that Izadie has taken her pot over to the party to be used when she was in need of it. She then ordered Izadie to go and find her pot and bring it back to her. Izadie communicates with a little boy on the other side of the compound and asks him to tell the women to send back his pot. Later that day, when Izadie receives the pot, it is not how he sent it. The pot is burned on the bottom and isn't properly clean, and this upsets Izadie. He says to the little boy, I want you to take this message back with you. Tell them that this is not how I sent that pot. I purchased that pot for business. I did not participate in eating of the food at the party. I shouldn't have to be the one to clean out this pot. Now we see Compère Dylan and Sonson sitting in a field having a conversation. They are speaking about the recent event, and this is when we get a flashback to when Sonson pays the money. Sonson goes alone to meet with the chief to pay the money. Instead of returning Sonson's goat back to him because he has made the payment that they demanded of him, the chief shouted at him, "What? Did you think you were not going to pay for the crops that your goat ate?" Sonson is obviously shocked and confused. At this moment, none other than Bosevilom walks in, happy and laughing, while Sonson is standing there looking very disappointed. He looks over to Sonson, realizing that he was standing in the room, and sarcastically tries to shake his hand. Sonson finally and truly realizes what is going on, and he does not go in to shake hands with Bosevilom. Sonson walks out the station, and you can hear everybody laughing at him. Now we come back to the conversation between Sonson and Compère Dylan. "They took the money and didn't give me my goat," Sonson says to Compère Dylan, "and they laughed at me." A heavy, rich laugh. Compère Dylan is ready to take this as a loss. He even tells Sonson, "Don't worry about what you owe me." But Sonson does not see it that way. "As for me," referring to himself, "I don't think that way. An eye for an eye." Sonson says, laughing. "You see that I am laughing?" "Yeah, I am laughing." Even with all that he has been through, the humiliation, what they've taken from him, the goat and the money, he is still laughing because he knows he will be the one to get the last laugh. A man is walking a great distance to get to a destination, carrying a couple of sacks and a machete. Now we see one of the women that was preparing the meal during the party. This woman is the wife of the police chief. She is crushing coffee when a neighbor comes to help her. They start to conversate, and the man that we saw who was traveling the distance finally reaches his destination. He is here to see her. He knocks and she welcomes him in, and he tells her to have a seat as he has some news for her, and it is better that she is sitting down. When the man kept his head down and failed to answer her why he had her husband's machete and sash, she realized that something awful has happened to her husband. She started to question, "Is my husband dead? Is my husband dead?" And the expression on the man's face told her everything and confirmed, in fact, that her husband did indeed pass away. She, her neighbor, and even the messenger broke down in tears and started to cry and yell so loudly that the neighbors ran to come see what was going on, and this is where they learned that the chief of police of their town had passed away. And this is where we see Sonson sitting on the hill that overlooks the town, smiling and smoking a pipe. He could hear all the yelling, screaming, and mourning, and so the chaos began. We are then transported back to our narrator of the story, Compère Dylan and Sauver, where Compère Dylan says to Sauver that "I don't know what Sonson did and didn't do, but ever since then, you couldn't go 2 or 3 days without hearing screams of mourning and crying. People were dropping left to right. All of the men that were involved in the situation with Sonson, his goat, started to fall one by one. And even the men that they borrowed the pot from, that turned out to be Izadier, the same man that was the assistant of the banker, even he wasn't spared. Because even though he did not participate in actually eating the goat, he was all part of the plan. That man was found collapsed in a field, and when his wife Marinette learned of this, she ran over to find him laying face down and yelled and screamed that he wasn't sick. She could not explain. His death was completely mysterious. He just suddenly collapsed with no explanation. Even the man who stole the plantains before the goat was not spared. Everybody who had a hand in the wrongdoing against Sonson met their doom. And so that leaves the question, what happened to Bosevilom, the main villain of this story, our thief? And so we get our final flashback, our finale. We see a man hopping out of a taxi carrying a blue luggage. After which he hitched a ride on a bicycle that could only take him to a certain distance. The man on the bicycle gave him directions to find the house that he was looking for. He was looking to go meet with Boss Sevilom. As he's walking towards the destination of Boss Sevilom's house, he sees Boss Sevilom in the distance. So he yells out for him, "Boss Sevilom, I am coming to see you." At this point, it is very obvious that Boss Sevilom is in a rush, in a hurry, as he points out that he has 3 people who are here to see him. The man clearly states that he has business with him and he cannot stay for long as he needs to return back to the city immediately after speaking to him. Boss Sevilom then tells him, "These 3 people will not wait. These visitors I have came for me and they will not wait. I have to go and see them, so please go back to my house and I will meet you there." The visitor finally allows for Boss Sevilom to go. He stares into the distance and he's looking at Boss Sevilom going over to the visitors, and something seems very disturbing to him. However, he listens to what Boss Sevilom says and continues to make his way towards his house to await for him to return. Upon arrival to Boss Sevilom's house, he can see that there is a crowd of people gathered in front of the small gallery. He pushes his way through the crowd to see what was all the fuss about. And there, as the sheets are pulled back to reveal the face of the body that has been laying there, something shocking and unbelievable happens, as it was none other than Boss Sevilom laying there on the gallery, and it is obvious that he has been dead since this morning. Shocked and confused, he pulls back at disbelief because he knows that he just saw Boss Sevilom. How in the world is it possible that he just saw Boss Sevilom on the way here, and here he is lying at home but dead? This is when we finally get a good look at those 3 visitors that Boss Sevilom had no choice but to go with.
Mes amis, what?
To have that kind of power, to command zombies to come and take a man in broad daylight, noon, 12 p.m., as 12 church bells ring, that is the story of Sonson.
N'a pas de sortir là, on vient parler là.